Hi, and welcome to Tax Tip of the Week. Today we're talking with Genevieve Watson, an S4HANA tax specialist working with Deloitte in the North-South Europe organization. And Jen will talk about 5 areas of thinking when doing S4HANA in the tax landscape and some of the practicalities about tax and S4HANA. So Jen, can you please talk through the areas of thinking and enlighten us a bit on the S4HANA journey?
Yeah, thanks, Jonas. So in terms of the 5 areas that are really important to go through when you're planning how tax should get involved in the S4HANA program, the first item to think about is vision. So what outcomes is tax trying to achieve, both in terms of tax as a function and perhaps responding to external factors such as the changing digital tax landscape and real-time reporting, so that then you can actually start to think about how does that correlate into the system and what you need from the system, because that will help you to think about what do you need going forwards, how do things need to be different from their current position for you. The second factor would be around scope. So the S4HANA program within your organization will have a defined scope in likelihood. That could be around entities, it could be around things like activities, it could also be things around the actual business processes that will be impacted by that change going forwards. That will then be important for you to understand so that you can think and map out how tax then needs to be overlaid. So which countries will be impacted for you as a tax organisation? Is it all of your tax types that will be impacted going forwards, or is it just some of those? The third factor would obviously be around design. Now, why that's important for you to understand from the broader programme is there'll be an approach to how they're going to tackle the transformation going forward. So is it a business-led transformation, or is it really an IT-led transformation that's going to happen? Do they have any preferences around whether you should be selecting different modules from within the SAP suite, or should you actually be, or are you encouraged to think about wider technologies? And some of those factors are important to know so that you can be thinking around what do you want from a tax perspective and that vision we mentioned at the beginning. The fourth factor is around roadmap. So thinking around timings and what's the deployment approach. Are they going to do a country-led deployment, or is it perhaps parts of your business that will go first around business units or activities? Because that will have an impact again as to how you need to engage with the program and what parts of your tax organisation are impacted. It's also really important to think about timeframes and that interim position as well. The final factor is around business case. And I think, Jonas, you covered that brilliantly last week with Jan on the tip from last week. But it's really important in that final point to think around how do you articulate those benefit outcomes that you want to achieve clearly, and particularly to non-tax stakeholders where they might not necessarily understand fully what you need from a tax perspective. So those are really, Jonas, I think the 5 key areas that people should think about.
Thank you, Jen. And if we should then look at, a tip, so like Jan did last week, a tip, a takeaway or a thought that the colleagues should have from this session, what is it that you would like to have top of mind and on everyone's mind around S4HANA and tax?
Perfect, thanks, Jonas. Yeah, so I'd have 3, I think, key takeaways. The first is around tax data has historically often been obtained and utilised from other parts of your organisation, such as finance, procurement, treasury, and so on. They will also obviously be involved in the programme, and therefore it's really important to align early in the design phase to understand how are they going to be impacted and how will they change their processes, because that will also have a knock-on impact on your tax organisation. This isn't necessarily easy to make it happen, and therefore it's the second tip is around stakeholders. So it's really important to understand who are the key stakeholders and who are the influences around the programme scope. And therefore, we'd always suggest having a nominated person who can actually make sure they drive the agenda forwards tax and engage with those key stakeholders in the programme. The final tip would be around getting ready to be involved in the programme. Tax is often needing to start from a different place to the rest of the organisation because it hasn't always been involved in these projects previously. Therefore, actually performing something like a process, data or technology review in advance of the programme or at the early stages of the programme can really start to help you think about how you get involved.
Thank you so much, Jen. And thank you all for listening into this tax tip of the week. We are looking forward to serve you the next tax tip next week and also covering S4HANA. Thank you.